The biggest Xbox interview of 2022 has already hit. It is from the New York Times, and there is just a ton of interesting news in here. And Xbox finally talked about their console sales, breaking all their own records. Let's get into this story right now. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell. Thank you so much for watching. So largely, I'm going to be talking about a few quotes from this audio interview that the New York Times posted. It was posted on January 10th, which is when I'm recording this video. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Specifically, the main talking point, and I might break this into two videos because there's so much to go over, but one of the main talking points was about Xbox Series X and S sales, which have surpassed anything Xbox has done in history. That includes the original Xbox, the Xbox 360, and the Xbox One generation of consoles. The specific quote is, "Supply is actually as big as it's ever been. It's that demand is exceeding the supply for all of us. At this point, we've sold more of this generation of Xboxes, which is Xbox Series X and S, than we had any previous versions of Xboxes." That is Phil Spencer talking to the interviewee. Let me get the name here really quick. It is Kara Swisher. Kara Swisher was conducting the interview. It was a one-on-one. And that is really, really interesting. That means Xbox is just dominating their own sales records yet again, doing tremendously well. That is really, really great news for the future of Xbox. And 20 years in, it looks like they aren't going anywhere. However, this was a rather small part of the conversation, but it is interesting to note that they have already surpassed something like the Xbox 360, potentially one of their most popular consoles ever made. I have to imagine they mean sales to date and not lifetime sales, seeing I believe the 360 and PS3 generation of consoles sold something like 100 million units. I don't know off the top of my head, but they sold a lot. So I don't think they mean lifetime, but they must mean to date. However, they also talked about some other supply strain issues that they're encountering. Once you get the console into stores, Phil Spencer says, there's so much demand. How do you actually manage so that real customers are buying our consoles and it's not a bunch of scalpers and bots that are securing the capacity? It's multi-step and it's kind of a 24/7 job for the team right now. So what does that mean? It means they're actually trying to address that bot problem that has been plaguing the entire industry. Every time a new console, a new CPU, a new GPU enters the market, they're almost impossible to get. Why? Because there's this large group of people who are using bots, buying these things, and then selling them at a marked up price. Xbox, PlayStation, everybody wants to make sure that those consoles are getting in the hands of gamers. And it is really, really refreshing to hear that Xbox is working on that alongside their competitors. In addition, though, he talked about other parts of the process, how shipping is a bottleneck, so like already you're trying to get the chips in order to make the consoles, and then you have to ship the consoles to the stores, and then you got to make sure that the stores are sending them to the customer and not to bots. So it has been a big challenge for Xbox, and it's interesting to hear them be so frank about the challenges that they are facing. They also talked how they feel about their infrastructure versus the competition. Now, during the interview, the interviewee over at New York Times, it's a great interview. You should at least go read the transcript, if not listen to the whole thing. I'm just taking out the parts that I found particularly interesting and discussing them here with you today. I'll link to the full interview in the comments below. But anyway, the interviewer compared Microsoft to Netflix, but this next answer sort of gave me some more insight into why they care so much about cloud, etc. So they said, but yeah, it feels like Netflix, talking about Xbox, but we do, I think, the opinion of allowing people to buy, it's just been a traditional part of gaming. The retail market continues to be very strong and grow. So let's make sure we offer our customers choice between subscriptions and transactions. That's probably the only difference between us and some of the video subscriptions. So what he's basically saying there, or at least the way I interpret it, is that they want you to choose where you can play. And I feel like I've said this till I'm blue in the face. It is their strategy, and it's how they differentiate from anybody else on the market. They do not care where you play your games. You can play on the Xbox app on PC. You can play on your Xbox One. You can play on your Xbox Series X. You can play in the cloud. And that's why console sales matter less and less to Xbox, even though they have finally talked about their console sales for one of the first times, giving us some idea of how well their consoles, the Xbox Series X and S, are selling. And guess what? They're selling tremendously well, just like everybody else. Everyone that they make is being sold, according to Microsoft. But what's really, really interesting, the one way that they've stood out, and they keep reminding people that they stand out as, is that they do not care where you play. He later noted that he thinks cloud is critical. Now, if we're being honest with each other, look at something like Steam that has just done a tremendous job of giving people a one-stop destination. Everybody has tried to copy it. EA tried to copy it with Origin. Ubisoft is trying to copy it with their own app. And eventually those apps got off of Steam because, frankly, Steam just charges too much to sell your app on their platform. So when he says cloud is critical, he was looking forward at their business model in the future and where they are going. They do talk about where they're at right now with the subscription service. We've talked a lot about how great Xbox Game Pass is on this channel, and he sort of discusses that aspect a little bit. Transaction is bigger than subscription. Subscription is growing faster just because it's relatively new. And with Game Pass, we were one of the first movers in that space, but the transaction business is very large. We still sell physical discs. So not only are they selling at brick and mortars, they're still selling tons of physical discs. Yes, they sell digitally copies of games, but the subscription service is a new market and a new endeavor for them, one that largely seems to be successful. I am curious where they're at profitability wise with Xbox Game Pass. I laugh because I said it weird. But yeah, I am curious, how well is Xbox Game Pass doing? When is the scale going to tip into that other direction? It's really, really interesting stuff. Finally, there was one more thing I wanted to hit on in this video, and because there's so many more great quotes about the Activision thing, about just where they want to go with moderation in the future, but this one I thought was really interesting. He said, "And the learning that we have over the years, not only with what you'd say is today's Teams or Zoom users, but also thinking about Gen Z, there's a whole generation that are growing up with their social connection to the world is through games. Personally, I do think that we have a responsibility to improve all of these online social spaces everywhere. All of them have problems. Xbox recognizes that even they have problems." He says that this idea that certain networks out there just assume that everybody on their network is over the age of 13, I think is not a responsible way to run a network. I'm not saying we figured it all out, but I love that we're public about what we stand for and what our goals are. Now, he goes on into great detail about some of their strategies and some of the problems with these other platforms. And it's really, really interesting. So interesting that I think I'm actually going to talk about it in a separate video, because I feel like I'm getting so far away from the Xbox strategy and their console sales that it is a separate topic that we'll talk about tomorrow. So thank you so much for watching this one. I actually really, really like this interview. I always like hearing from Phil Spencer. He always has something interesting to say, and he talks about the future of gaming in such a great way. I look forward to seeing what they do in the future. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell to know when my videos go live. Thank you so much for watching. I actually edited this one. I'm going to put in the quotes. I'm going to put in a little bit of B-roll. So hopefully you like the additional effort this time. If you want to become a member, memberships are turned on. Members got to see this first. I'm going to post it as soon as it's finished. If you would like to support like these fine people have over here, see their name, you can click that join button down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.